In this video, we will create a particle effect that will be programmed to look like a burst of sparks. We're going to program this particle effect so that when this fireball or projectile hits any of the platforms we've created, the fireball will be destroyed and a particle effect will be produced. The particle effect will be, we're going to try to make it look like a little burst of sparks. So we will first make sure we are on level 1, which we are. We'll also select our main layer so that any new objects that are created will be placed on our main layer. With our main layer selected, we will insert a new object, a particle effect, and I will call it bullet sparks. I'm going to place it off screen. I'm going to resize it to 16 by 16. Paintbrush, create a 16-inch round yellow circle. I'll switch to my pen tool. I'm going to try to use some of the same colors that are in my projectile to make it look as if when the projectile hit, it burst into little sparky bits. Decrease our size to 1. Start by placing a bit of a drop shadow, moving into my orange section. I'll place orange shadow along the top edges. And then last I will put an almost white highlight on the front. A small highlight there. I like the size of that. And I like the coloring. Looks pretty good. The particle effect is currently off screen. We do not want the particle effect to be on screen. We want to spawn this in, so we're placing it off screen. In order to look at some of the properties, though, we will keep it on screen just for the beginning. When I hit play, we'll see our particle emitter spraying out our particles. With our particle emitter selected, we will look in our property bar and scroll down until we find 3 sections: the properties, the initial particle properties, as well as the lifetime properties. We'll begin with the top section. The rate is how many particles are created per second in a continuous spray particle emitter. We'll keep this at 50, and when we hit play, just as before, we'll see our particles being emitted. The other option we have is continuous spray. We also have one shot. This will create 50 particles one time. The other variable that we can adjust is the spray cone. Currently, it might be easier if I just don't show the background. We have this red line. This defines our spray cone. If I change it to 180, you'll see that this red line is now vertical and will create projectiles in a 180-degree arc. They were fired one time. If we go into continuous spray, you'll see them being generated again in that 180-degree arc. If we do 360, we'll spray this in an entire circle, 360 degrees around the emitter. Those are some of the main properties. Next, we have our initial particle properties. The speed, this is just the speed the particles will travel away from the particle emitter. The size, I'm going to decrease this to 16. Opacity is just what it says. If I hit play now, we should see that our particles are much smaller as they are created. A grow rate, This will cause our particles to increase in size after they're created. So you'll see small particles that slowly get larger. We have a grow rate randomizer. This will cause certain particles to get bigger and then certain particles to stay small. When we hit play, we'll see that some particles are larger than others. Some particles stay smaller than others. We have speed randomizers that will create different speeds as particles are created. And then size. Size randomizers will make it look as if not all particles being generated are the same size. You'll see some are very small and some are large. I like that. It makes them look not uniform. Reselecting our particle emitter, we've kind of looked at the properties as well as the initial particle properties. We can control speed, size, opacity, grow rate, X, Y randomizer, speed randomizer, size. I'm going to include that. I think I'll also decrease my speed so that the particles move a little bit slower. And that's a little bit too small, so let's try 100. I like that. That is okay. Those are our initial properties for our particles. Next, we will look at the lifetime properties. This carries acceleration, gravity, which will affect the particles, angle randomizer. Ours is a circle, so there's no real reason to randomize the angle of it. Speed randomizer, opacity. The destroy mode is something that we can adjust as well. We have a timeout, which will have the particles disappear after a certain amount of time. It's currently set to fade to invisible, and it will fade over 1 second. If we do timeout expired, you'll notice that now our particles are not fading out, they're disappearing at the specified time. I'll set my acceleration to 0, and this should not have them kind of get that pull back to the center, but now they should just be going off, not being pulled back to the emitter. The last variable that I'll mess with is gravity. I'll put 100 units of gravity. And you'll see that the particles now are still being emitted upward, but most of them are being pulled down. There is a gravity that is applied to our particle emitter. It's kind of an aggressive emitter. There's an awful lot of them going on. So I will decrease this to 40. Instead of a continuous, I'll make it a one shot. And let's drag this off screen. And let's go to our event sheet. Our particle emitter is called bullet sparks. In our collision event, where the projectile is colliding with the platform, we will add an action. We will make our projectile spawn another object, and that will be our bullet sparks. We'll put it on layer 1. That is our main layer. And the image point is image point 0. I'm going to create an image point. Here are our image points. Currently this is the origin. I'd like to make an image point that's right at the top of the fireball, so we'll add a new one. We'll call it bullet sparks. And we'll move that right to the top of our projectile. And we'll apply that to the whole animation. Each animation now has that bullet sparks image point. We'll delete that. Where is this one? Okay, yeah, that's right at the tip or right at the top. Image point number 1, called bullet sparks. Let's change this to image point number 1, so that rather than coming from the center, it'll come from the end. We'll go to level 1, and we'll hit play. See that right at the end of our projectile, these sparks are being generated.